Hello all, Alison here again with a few minutes of fun, and I'm really going to try to stick to a few minutes of fun today. I promised these videos would be between 5 and 15 minutes, and so far I've been pretty much bang on the 15-minute mark, apart from the one extended edition that took a little bit longer. So I'm going to try and stick closer to 5 minutes today and do an old favourite. It's another Tim Holtz technique, the Spritz and Flick. And I love this for creating backgrounds that just have a bit of watery, inky detail in them. And if you want to know in more detail about the inking process, then please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do a video with some more detail about how I layer up my colours and colour choices and things like that. But for today, I really wanted to stick to the spritzing and flicking. I am going to ink up one tag so that you can see what it is and how simple it is. This is done with Tim Holtz Ranger Distress inks. They're specifically formulated to be reactive with water, so you get this gorgeous effect. I'm sure that you can do it with other water-based inks, but these are the ones I love to play with, partly because of the amazing range of vintage muted colours. He has brights as well, Tim, in the range, and believe me, I've got those too. But you've already noticed that I like to play in these natural palettes. So we're going to do a very quick bit of inking, then have a look at the spritzing and flicking. But as I say, if you want to have a more detailed video at some point, maybe even 15 minutes of fun, looking at the inking and maybe even having a look at the difference between distress inks and distress oxides when you're inking and flicking them, then I'm really happy to do that. Let me know in the comments below. But for now, let's grab a tag without further ado. I'm just going to move this because it's casting a beautiful watery shadow. And I've laid out some inks that I've been using already this morning. You can see my fingers are already inked up. And I think I'm gonna just grab a couple and show you what's what. So I've got various sponges on my blending tools. I do swap in and out my sponges, but I've got a sort of brown, a sort of bluish, a sort of turquoisey, a sort of greenish, and a greyish neutral. So it's just a question, and you can see that, yeah, when I say sort of turquoise, this is the Salvaged Patina, and because there's already other things going on the sponge, that's not pure Salvaged Patina going on there. That's got a hint of green in it because, as I say, I've been inking and playing all morning. I've been already having a few minutes of fun, and I decided I'd share a few more minutes of fun with you. So I tend to layer up the colours. I come in from the edge of the tag. As I say, if you'd like to hear all this in more detail, please let me know, and I'm very happy to do something with a bit more information about this bit. But this is really just a means to an end here to get ourselves an inky tag that we can spritz and flick. I might go in with a bit of green, because one of the things I really love this background for is for stamping nature stamps over, particularly sort of meadow flowers and that sort of thing. That's another few minutes of fun we can have in the future, if that's something you fancy. Again, drop things in the comments if there are things you'd like to hear or see. Don't know if you can hear the train hooting in the background. That's excellent timing. And unfortunately, it means there'll be another one along in a minute as well, unless I really stick to my very few minutes of fun. So there's a little bit of Pumice Stone going into the middle there, because I do love my greys, as you'll have noticed. So there's just a nice inky tag, and you can see this is where the inky fingers come from. If I'm careless around the edges, which I often am, you'll get a bit of extra colour happening in the middle there. Might put just a little bit of faded jeans coming in from the sky, so my bluish. But this has also been playing with Uncharted Mariner this morning, so that's going to have a slightly stormier effect, but I rather like that. And I might put some blues through the middle here, just because I fancy it. There's no rhyme or reason to this. There's looking at the tag and seeing what it is that your heart wants. And then the technique itself, spritz and flick, it really is that simple. I've got a little water bottle, but I could just dip my fingers into some water. I'm going to spritz a bit into the palm of my hand, a few droplets, and then flick them at the tag. And if I've got lots of water in the palm of my hand, I'll get nice big droplets. If I've got only a little bit, I'll get tiny little bits, tiny little droplets. And then the key is really to let it sit for at least a few seconds so that the water and the ink have a chance to interact. And I don't know if you can see how that water is just slightly lifting ink away from the tag. And then you just get a piece of paper towel, or a cloth will do if you want to reuse. I'm using this for simplicity's sake at the moment so you can see what's going on. And you can see that's lifting ink away in the places where the water was. And you get this lovely, organic, random, textural detail. If you feel like you haven't got quite enough going on, perfectly simple, go back in, have another little spritz and flick. And again, I'm going to let it sit for a moment, maybe not as long as the first time, and then I'll get a slightly less extreme effect. So I'm picking up the ink just a little bit earlier. And so in the first case, it took lots of the ink off and it went almost back down to the middle of the tag. In the second case, it left a bit more ink in place so that you can still see layers of colour there. It's another of the things I really love with this technique, is it gives you a real illusion of depth to the tag. So I'm just going to dry off the mat there and let you see that in action. Let's do one more. I think we won't be massively outstaying our welcome if we have one more little go. Or actually, the other thing you can do once you've got that nicely inked and spritzed and flicked is you can add more layers of colour over the top. So one of the things I like to do is give a little edging to the tag. This is the fabulous new Scorched Timber, really deep dark brown. And if I just edge around the bottom of that to give me a sense of the earth, maybe a bit of muddiness, you can see where the ink had lifted up. You get a much better look at that rich dark brown. So again, it's creating layers and depth and really lovely sort of effects, deepening that colour. Same thing here with one of these tags I did earlier. If I take myself maybe some Uncharted Mariner, another really deeply pigmented colour, and my sort of blue sponge, and then add a little bit more depth around the edge, you can see I'm just at the same time softening the impact of those spritzed droplets. I might give myself some brown around the bottom corner. And as always, when you're layering up distress ink colours, I'm using distress inks only, no oxides on the mat today. So they are translucent, so those layers build and intensify and mix or blend with the colours beneath them to change the shading a little. So a very simple technique, the spritz and flick, but as I say, I really enjoy the organic, random nature of the patterns you get. Oh, see, now I'm looking at this one that I made earlier, and I really want to put a bit of edging around that, maybe in a contrasting colour to what's already going on here. So I might pick myself, ooh, maybe a little bit of shaded lilac to come in as a bit of a summer cloud in this corner. Just a little haze of purple to dampen down those bright turquoises. And coming up from the bottom, maybe a bit of the very highly pigmented Rustic Wilderness, which is a really rich one. Don't want too much on the sponge because it will very quickly start to take over. And you can see immediately how that draws the eye into the center of the tag. So these are just manila tags that I buy in bulk. They're the size 8 as sold by Ranger, which means they are about 3 inches by about 8.5 inches. And they do beautifully with the distress inks because they do have a very slightly sheeny surface. But as I say, more of that on another day. If you let me know in the comments that you'd like to see some more inking, again, possibly with the oxides also involved. But for now, I'm going to leave you having had just a very few minutes of fun with the Tim Holtz and Ranger Distress Inks and some water. That's the magic of the Spritz and Flick. Thanks so much for dropping in. I hope you all have a great time having a play with this technique. It's an oldie but a goodie. If you've enjoyed this, it'd be grand to hear from you in the comments. Do hit the thumbs up button. That one, not that one, please. And if you've enjoyed yourself and you haven't yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would join us for the future here at Words and Pictures. Thanks all. Happy crafting.